Yo, what's good, y'all? What's good? It's your boy Savage. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, my plan, my plan is to get into Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. So I'm continuing on in my book, reading from my book, and today my plan is to cover Benjamin, who are the Jamaicans and the West Indians of today. Um, the Caribbean islands, some people call them the lone wolf. But yeah, today is all about Benjamin and the people of the Caribbean islands, from Jamaica and some of the other islands. So join me as I take you through my book, and I'm going to read from my book. We're going to go through some of the history. We're going to deal with some of the scriptures concerning Benjamin. I'm going to read to you the testament of Benjamin, the forefather of Benjamin, the the forefather of the tribe of Benjamin. His name was Benjamin, and so we're going to dive into that today and a variety of different things. So once again, I do thank you for your support. I do thank you for joining me. Thank you for being with me. Definitely hope you had a blessed day. Hope you had a peaceful day. I did work today. I worked an 8-hour shift, so and now I'm coming to do this. So I'm definitely appreciative for you. Definitely appreciative, and thank you for showing love. And may that love be received back to you. Amen. Amen. All right, so we starting with Benjamin, who I like to call Ben Jammin, because the music, and so they been jamming. But the so-called Jamaicans and West Indies, the lone wolf, the warriors. Benjamin, along with his brethren Judah and Levi, can be found in high number in West Africa, Jamaica, and the Caribbean islands. An example, Barbados. They are described by their father Jacob as having the spirit of a wolf. Wolves are known for howling at the moon, similar to the way that the so called West Indian sing songs of Zion towards the heavens. This also describes the sometimes rapacious spirit that Benjamin carries. Under the Maroons, Benjamin would overtake the slave ships and divide the spoils amongst one another. The Bible also makes mention of blessed land in which Benjamin dwells, starting the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and shall dwell between his shoulders. Paul, who was very radical, was from the tribe of Benjamin. Yes, Paul was a black man. And I do talk about Paul to Benjamin, Benyamin, so called West Indies, which includes Jamaica and Barbados, to name a few. Genesis 35, verse 18. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni. But his father called him Benjamin. Genesis 49, verse 27. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. Deuteronomy 33, verse 12, King James Version. And of Benjamin he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. No, Benjamin are the original people of Spain and Portugal, Iberia. These people were very dark. Many of these people were exiled, slave trade, from Spain and Portugal by Pope Martin V, John Paul II, and they settled in the West Indies. The people in these seas, the people in these areas, Spain, Portugal, Eurasia, and Palestine, that once had very dark skinned people over the years, became people with light to white skin due to Edomites, white people, exiling and or deleting the men and essaying the women, in the R word, the women, which changed the skin color of the original people. The Edomites did this whitewashing to most dark skinned nations, including Europe. Because, as you know, the original people of Europe were dark skinned. Black people ruled Europe during the Dark Ages, and I've already covered this numerous times in previous videos. I've told you, original people of Ireland, dark skin. Scotland, I've talked about King James being dark skinned, the original King James Stuart. He was the King James Stuart, first and sixth of his name. He was the first king, and he was black, to unite England, Ireland, and Scotland. I've done lessons on him, on his son, Black Boy, who they call Charles, who the colonizers try to say his mom called him that because of his hair. Get out of here. But anyway, I've talked about this. I've talked about Oliver Cromwell, and that's how the current people, the current cave dwellers who are on the throne right now, that's how they got into power. Okay, they come from the Wettin dynasty. I've said all of this previously. After they stole the identity of the original people in the lands they would conquer, they destroyed, hid, and lied about the true history of the people's identity that they stole. They would also change the name of the people and the lands. Africa's true name after the flood is Ham. And I've also talked to you about Africanus Scipio, whatever his name is, and how I've also told you, I believe it was somebody from Lot's lineage named Ophrin or something like that. That's the original name, the person who named Africa. It came from out of Lot's lineage, I believe. But I've talked about this in previous videos. All you got to do is look at the videos. I know you caught up in the Cardi B and the Nicki Minaj distraction, because that's what it is. It's a distraction. And you got one of them sitting up here. I'm like, oh my God, you telling people that they going to hell, and you telling people where they gonna go, but you took the same oath as these people. Were you telling them that where they gonna go? Where you think you going? You took the same oath. And I love her. Definitely believe she deserves a Grammy, because of the work she has put in. But I just be sitting there looking like, how? When you took the same oath. Do you not remember your Grammy performance and that ritual that you did? And then the same stuff that she's saying about the Latina chick, that's the same stuff that she did to the Queen Bee. But not to be talking about that on this. I'm just saying this is a distraction. It's a distraction to keep you distracted from what President Dump put out today, a tweet that he put out today. And pretty much he's been doing Project 2025, in which he tried to distance himself away from. See, this is me getting away from it. I'm trying to keep it on Benjamin though. But I just want to play something. So you see the post, right? You can see this is the post. This is the post. I'm showing it to you because I'm not going to. This is the man that's talking. You see who's talking, right?
Says it right in there that the...
Okay, so I want you to hear his voice because I ain't going to show it while he's speaking.
The Irish, the original Irish were black people. Right? And the Scottish, they were black people. That's how they became. You got these black people in the Caribbean with Irish names. I'm a Murphy. Yeah. I wondered where the hell I got the Murphy from. But the point is that those black people got to the Caribbean. They came with their original names, and you can find those names in Oliver Cromwell's, documentation of who, people he deported. Yeah, I've just been to the British Library to get a book called Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica. It says it right in there that those black people in the Caribbean are Irish. No, because in Jamaica there are no such people who had landowners who would have been enslavers. They didn't have those names. They literally came from Spain, right? They were called the Iberians, yeah? Because Spain used to be called the Iberian Peninsula, yeah? Then found that the original Irish were black people.
The original Irish were black people.
Scottish, they were black people. That's how they became. You got these black people in the Caribbean with Irish names. I'm a Murphy. Yeah.
He said that's how you got these Irish people in the Caribbean, these black people in the Caribbean with Irish names. He said he is a Murphy.
I wondered where the hell I got the Murphy from. But the point is that those black people got to the Caribbean. They came with their original names, and you can find those names in Oliver Cromwell's, documentation of.
So I've talked about Oliver Cromwell. In previous videos I've talked about this guy, and he's saying that these people came with their original names. And you can find the names in Oliver Cromwell because these people, Esau, these people that's ruling right now, they had to record the truth in order to take the truth and lie about it. So they have the truth. They know the truth. But they put out lies. Because he who's the victor writes his story.
Yeah, I've just been to the British Library to get a book called Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica. It says it right in there that those black people in the Caribbean are Irish. No, because in Jamaica there are no such people who had landowners who would have been enslavers. They didn't have those names.
Mm-hmm. And he said that the enslavers didn't have those names. Listen to this.
So I'm stood here on the north coast of Ireland at the Giant's Causeway. Now, historians and geologists will have you believing that this was created by volcanic activity over 100 years ago. But I'm here to tell you that is anti-black propaganda. But the truth is, this spectacular feature here was built by my ancestors, the first black people to ever arrive in Scotland. Now these were African giants from the area which we now call modern Sudan, Ethiopia and Kenya. They walked across the Sahara Desert, which wasn't a desert at the time, but was actually flourishing grasslands.
Hold on, I'm going to show this because he's showing some pictures. See, this is
Giant's Causeway. Now, historians and geologists will have you believing that this was created by volcanic activity over 100 years ago. But I'm here to tell you that is anti-black propaganda. But the truth is, this spectacular feature here was built by my ancestors, the first black people to ever arrive in Scotland. Now these were African giants from the area which we now call modern Sudan, Ethiopia and Kenya. They walked across the Sahara Desert, which wasn't a desert at the time, but was actually flourishing grasslands. When they reached the west coast of Africa, they swam in the Atlantic up north until they reached the Emerald Isle, the island of Ireland. Now some, when they reached here, decided they were going to stay and colonise Ireland, but others my ancestors weren't so satisfied. They wanted to keep going. They wanted to keep exploring. So these African giants built this bridge across the Irish Sea. A land bridge, a causeway, if you will, which took them all the way over the Irish Sea into Scotland. So when people try to tell you, there was never any black people in Ireland or Scotland before the 1900s and 1800s, just tell them, we colonised this island first. Our ancestors, the giants from East Africa, they came to this country and built this glorious causeway.
So, yeah, I love to be validated, And so they will also change the names of the people and lands. Africa's true name after the flood is Ham. Egypt's true name is Mizraim. Mexico's true name is Azareth or Turtle Island. Amerigo Vespucci is a liar. And so continuing on. Genesis 35:16 through 19. 16. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath, and Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni. But his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. Our mother Rachel died giving birth to the youngest son of the 12 tribes, which is Benjamin. Benjamin are known as warriors. Genesis 49, verse 27. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. These are people who would not be taken without a fight. These are people who would take over the slave ships, becoming pirates, freeing the other slaves. I know that we were taught that the pirates were white, but the original pirates were black. They would target the slave ships and other ships carrying money, gold, and food, and etc. Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Benjamin went into the West Indies by way of cargo slave ships, just like all the rest of the tribes. Before the transatlantic slave trade, our native brothers were shipped all through Europe, including Spain. No man shall buy you means no man shall redeem us. Not Martin Luther King, not Malcolm X, who I call Uncle Mac because he's very honorable to me. Not Marcus Garvey, not Nat Turner. Oh, they ate Nat Turner. Or any other leader. The only one who can redeem or buy us is Christ, whose real name is Yeshua, which is why the Bible says he paid a high price for our redemption. Okay? And then I'm going to go into some books here. Just give me one moment to show what I've read so far. Showing you the books. Scholars try to, discredit these books, but who is these scholars? Who are the scholars, quote unquote? The people who men like Dr. Joseph J. Williams are talking about. So, of course, they're going to try to discredit, do whatever they can. But even their own literature says what it says about them, which is I've already shown that multiple times. And I'm showing what I'm about to read next. I would just like to point out that in one point in time, these books were very hard to obtain in the Negro community. We could not have access to these books for years. The imposter, you-ish publishers who control the news, media, and publishing companies knew what effect this information would have on our community while exposing their lies. Their lies that everybody is starting to catch on to now, like Candace Owens and that other one who was just taken up out of here. That's why he was taken out. The one who they trying to make seem like he was Martin Luther King when he wasn't even a quarter of that man. You know, the one who they flew the flags at half staff for, even though he was not a politician or, you know, no type of senator, no type of, you know, not even a pastor, not even a, you know, he was nothing, not in the military, nothing. But body was flown home on what, Air Force One? That one. That's why they took him out, because he started talking about these imposters, the ones who I've been talking about for years. You just now getting here. Welcome, Candace Owens. This is why the elite raised the price to around $984 is the cheapest I had seen for a hardback copy. With this book, we would be able to trace our Hebrew ancestry back to Africa. This would also cut out all the money profited by the imposter DNA companies who do lie as well. They will lose money and be exposed, which is why they don't want this information to get out. And please keep in mind, I'm going to speak about some more information that they don't want to get out. And it's a reason for that. You got to put on your thinking caps. The Hebrew Heritage of Our West African Ancestors by Stephen Jacobs and Rudolph Windsor. Introduction. Read this first. Are Black Americans the descendants of West African Hebrews? This question is answered in the affirmative with a resounding yes by Professor Joseph J. Williams after more than 11 years of intensive research into this subject. In his book entitled Hebrewisms of West Africa, the eminent cultural anthropologist documents the origins and extent of the Hebrew religion and culture in that part of West Africa, which is the ancestral home of most Black Americans. His book has 443 pages. It is documented with more than 1,400 footnotes. In reality, it is a compendium of every nearly major treatise on the subject. Sorry, I had to do some editing. It is documented with more than 1,400 footnotes. In reality, it is a compendium of nearly every major treatise on the subject. Professor Williams cites over 900 different scholars and eyewitnesses in this encyclopedic effort. Okay? That's what I want to be said about my work, my book. That's what I'm going for. It wasn't to try to gain nobody in the pews or, you know, because I don't need you to believe what I'm talking about because I know what I'm talking about. And I started talking about this stuff 10 plus years ago. And look what's coming out today. Unfortunately, the original book by Joseph Williams is not available to most readers. And even if it were, it is far too detailed and expensive for most tastes. For these reasons, we have obtained the necessary consent to reproduce the most salient portions under the title The Hebrew Heritage of Our West African Ancestors, together with the rights to include our own editorial comments and supplementary information. The purpose is to bring to every reader, scholar, and layman alike an insight into and perspective of a civilization and heritage which he or she may have realized, which he or she never may have realized exists. The Ashanti of West Africa, page 6. Professor Williams begins his book by recalling his discoveries and observations while living for 5 years on the West Indian island of Jamaica. Intrigued by certain similarities with Noyant Hebrew customs, this famous Jesuit scholar then began an 11-year search to determine if there were really affinities between Middle East customs, which wasn't even a word before the 1800s, and those found in Africa and the West Indies. The following are the words of Dr. Williams, which summarize his reasons for pursuing the subject. He says that to understand properly the spirit and aspirations of the Jamaican peasant, a close study of the African Ashanti themselves became necessary. And this study in turn led to some rather startling results and conclusions. Well, of course it did. Of course it did. In the first place, he continues, many Hebrewisms were discovered in the Ashanti tribal customs. You don't say. Then several Ashanti words were found to have a striking resemblance to those of equivalent Hebrew meaning. Finally, the supreme being of the Ashanti gave strong evidence of being the Yahweh God of the Old Testament. See, they have Yahweh, but see, the real name of the Most High is Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. And that translate from Hebrew into English, I am that I am. You know where you can find that? In Exodus 3, verse 14, King James Version. That's the name that he gave Moses. I am that I am. In Hebrew, it's Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. This Yahweh person, that's the name of the devil. Sadi. God's name is not Yahweh. His name is not Jehovah. If you don't believe me, because I do not argue about this anymore, because I say it all the time, anything I have a video of, I'm not about to sit up and argue with nobody about it. Because I have a video. Go argue with the video. But you can go to the His Name section on this very channel, and you will see I've proven that Jehovah, Yahweh, all those names are not the Most High. His name is Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya. Continuing on. The question, he says, naturally arose how to explain these parallels of cultural traits. Should they be ascribed to mere coincidence or independent development, or have we here a remarkable instance of diffusion across the entire breadth of Africa? It is possible to establish even a partial historical contract between the Ashanti of today and the Hebrews of fully 2,000 years ago or more. The answer to these questions, Professor Williams deduces, can be found by trying to trace the story of the dispersion of the real Jews from the Middle East, and by studying the tribal beliefs and practices and the records of early European travelers, particularly those who had written of the manners and customs of the African black man. What is the geographical and historical significance of the Ashanti of West Africa, about whom Dr. Williams concentrates the first part of his study? The answer is that the Ashanti represent a large grouping of peoples, not an isolated tribe, about whom a fair amount of information is known, of equal importance. The Ashanti and related groups of people also inhabit an area roughly the same as that from which the slave ancestors of most black Americans came. Also, the Igbo, the Igbo. These colonizers knew who they were going after. They knew it. Just like Christopher, uh, Peto. He knew that this land was here because he read about it in the book of Esdras, in the book of Second Esdras. The book that the Roman Catholic Church told you wasn't canon. That book. That's how he knew about this land over here. He knew that if he sailed over here, he wouldn't fall off the edge of the earth. Some people back in the day knew more scriptures than these people do today. What a shame. So I've already shown you what I was going to start reading. And then, so let me continue on. And like I said, you can always pause this if you want to read it for yourself. Okay, so this next point that I am going to talk about, I need for you to pay attention. Listen, I don't care if you are black, I don't care if you are white, I do not care if you are Asian, if you are Hispanic, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican. I need you to hear me. If you are an American citizen, and I'm talking to the normal, regular people, the working class people, the poor people in this country, I need you to pay attention to what I'm going to say. I need you to hear me. If you are in these churches, I need you to listen. Listen. I don't care if you're gay or straight. This is more important than a ballroom scene. This is more important than LeBron James. This is more important than NBA and the NFL. I need you to hear me, and I need you to just think about this. Just think about it. Just think about what I'm about to say. The key point is a study was done amongst Jamaicans, and it was found out that they have customs tracing back to the Ashanti. The Ashanti customs trace back to the 12 tribes of Israel. It's like one big puzzle that we have to put back together in order to understand our history. In the Levi section, I told you how the Limba kept their historical records tracing back to the 12 tribes of Israel, proving that the original Jews are black. I give all praise to the Most High because He made a way to preserve our history after all these years. They, the imposter converts, the ill-ish people, try to discredit any information that tells the truth about who they truly are. Esau, synagogue of Satan, Revelation 2 verse 9, Revelation 3 verse 9. Read it. And where they come from. Khazaria, Russia, Germany, Ukraine, Poland. I even told you that the Netanyahu dude, that's not even his real last name. His real last name is Mikowski or something. Mildew. No, not. I mean, he might smell like mildew, but Milkowski or something like that. It's Polish. He didn't. His family, his father changed their name when he got over into Palestine. Netanyahu was not even his real last name. All of them, the majority of them change their names when they come over here, when they go over there. For example, Arthur Koestler, who was one of them, has a book titled The 13th Tribe, the Khazar Empire and its heritage, that is not widely accepted by their scholars and historians. Koestler's book says the same information that many of their imposter converts, the Elish, own encyclopedias say about them. It's a fact that they did not exodus from Egypt. They were not the people who left out of Egypt with Moses. They were the Sephardic, who are Semitic because they come from Esau. They were placed into the land, and this was like around 720 BC. And this was one of their. They've had many conversions. Okay, they've had many conversions. You can read about this in 2 Kings 17, specifically verse 24. Okay, Sepharvaim, that's them. They come from Esau, so they are Semitic, but they are not the real Jews because they don't come from Jacob. Jacob is the one who was promised the promises. And so I say all of that to say I want you to think about why the imposter converts fight so hard to silence people by labeling anyone who questions or speaks out about them as anti-Semitic. The why. America sends billions of American taxpayer dollars to a false people who they knew were not the real Jews. They knew these people were not the real Jews. Now, that's a crime within itself. But how does America know that the people in Israel are not the real Jews? America, along with Britain, created a false people for a false state of Israel under the lies of the Balfour Declaration. See, and when you hear me say false state of Israel, I'm not talking about the Israel from the Bible. I'm not talking about that. That's very real. But what was created, that's false. That's false. And there were 12 tribes. So they all come from Judah. Judah is the black people. It was 12 tribes. Why don't none of them say, oh, I'm from Ephraim? Oh, I'm from Reuben? Jew means you come from Judah. Judea came from Judah. The southern kingdom. Levi, Benjamin, and Judah. These were black people. They ran into Africa. 70 AD. They ran into Africa. That's how they was able to blend in. It's only 4 original families from Africa. And I've talked about all of this on my previous videos. I've talked about it. It's only 4 original families. You have the Egyptians, who are Mizraim. You have the Libyans, who are Put. You have the Canaan, who was expelled because of what they did to Noah's wife, their mama. Um, and then you have Cush, who the Ethiopians, who I told you in the video previous that Moses, and we know Ethiopians is black. Okay, when Moses disappeared, when he ran after he slew that man, he went to Ethiopia. Why your pastor ain't telling you this? He went to Ethiopia and he was in the Ethiopian army. He spent 9 years there. That's how he learned war. That's how he learned how to fight. That's how he learned how to be strategic in war, because of the Ethiopian army. And then it tells you he married a woman named Zipporah, right? She was the queen of Ethiopia. Her husband, see, you don't hear about her husband in the original Bible, the 66 books that you got today. No, you got to read the lost books. You got to read the Apocrypha. You have to read the Pseudepigrapha. You have to read the book of Jubilees, the book of Jasher. You have to read this stuff to learn this stuff. Zipporah's husband, who was the king of Ethiopia, his name was Kikianus or something like that. Well, he died, and then the Ethiop, they love Moses. They love Moses. And so you mean to tell me that some white man was in the Ethiopian army and they loved him? No. Moses was black. So was Aaron. The people of Levi, the Levitical priesthood, which is, you never hear none of those imposters talk about that and say that they're priesthood. Because they know who they are, and they know who they are not. That's why they go through great lengths to silence people. The people from Levi are the Haitians and the Trinidadians today. That's why their magic is so strong. The voodoo, that was what they used to use as the sacrifice, when they did the sacrifices. But when Christ came and Christ did his sacrifice, the Most High is not taking any more sacrifices, because there's no greater sacrifice than his son. So, the why. America sends billions of Mexican taxpayer dollars to a false people who they knew were not the real Jews. Now, that's a crime within itself, but how does America know that the people in Israel are not the real Jews? America, along with Britain, this was years ago, created a false people for a false state of Israel. I believe this was after World War II, I believe. And so it could have been World War One, too. I've given you the specific dates and everything. I've shared the picture under the lies of the Balfour Declaration. America did this so in the future, today, she would have a base over in the Middle East, which didn't become a term until the 1800s. For the 1800s, there was no Middle East. So she would have a base in the Middle East when she wanted to take the resources from surrounding lands. That's why America, gave the imposters the weapons that they have today. She never expected for the imposters to turn on her, using her own weapons against her. America created a monster whom she thought she could keep on a leash. Isn't that what has been happening since the weapons of mass destruction that were never found? Oh, wait. I'm sorry. We did find them, because we left $7 billion worth of weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East after a useless 20-year war that costed the American people trillions of dollars and numerous lives lost so old Georgie boy could have his oil and money. Are you with me? Follow me. But I believe the plan backfired somehow, and now those imposters have grabbed America by her pussy, by her private parts, taking notes from President Dump. Amesica gave a bunch of trigger-happy, scrawny, demonic, pedophilic wimps their power, and it's the classic game of I'm up, so I don't need you now. That's what's going on. They already show, and by trigger happy, it's like a wimp getting all this power, and now they going around terrorizing other people. You know what I'm saying? They trying to attack and bomb other people. You see what's going on in the headlines? The genocide that's going on over there? You see this. Scrawny because they don't fit the land. They don't fit the land. The sun does not agree with them. That is why there are high rates of melanoma, skin cancer, among their people over there. The sun does not agree with them. So yes, trigger happy, scrawny, demonic, because of the Kabbalah and the Talmud, which is I've talked about in previous videos, the things that's going on in those books, giving you specific passages on how they feel about your black Jesus. But then yet your pastor is telling you to donate your money and they're taking your money, and a lot of them have donated to the Eagles Wings or some organization that went to fund Christian organizations, funded those imposters being brought to that false state of Israel. That's what your pastor did. Keep that in mind. So it's and pedophilic because they have a practice where the rabbis literally, like, they do something and they put their mouths on the male baby's scrotum and they suck the blood. You can look this up. I've already talked about this. See, you waiting for creative flow of dollars and TD Jake mistake, TD Jake the snake mistake, to tell you this, but they not, because they took oaths to take your money and teach you lies. I already showed a video, a creative flow of dollars coming out telling you everything he taught you about tithes was wrong. But anyway, it's the classic game of I'm up, so now I don't need you. They already showed that they couldn't be trusted on June 8th, 1967, when the imposter forces attacked the American intelligence ship USS Liberty during the Six-Day War. The assault, which involved both aircraft and torpedo boats, killed 34 American crew members and wounded 171. The state of Israel officially apologized for the attack, stating it was a case of mistaken identity, but I don't believe that at all. Let me tell you what really happened. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were showing who owns Amesica. Yeah, we bombed the most powerful military in the world and nothing happened to us. But to make things look like everything is okay, we'll just oopsie daisy, we sorry, we are sorry. How do you think the families of the slain 34 American crew members or the 171 people that were wounded would feel if they knew that they went through that for a scam and imposters who are not even the real Jews? Do you not see all the crimes that have been committed so far? This is treason since World War II. So, if you're following me, okay, the reason why they go so hard to keep people from talking about them, from saying anything about them, from digging too deep to going to great lengths to silence popular influencers like they just took old boy out because he was starting to wake up. They go through those great lengths like that because if the American public knew, if they, because I'm sorry, Americans, you have become dumb. And it's not all your fault. And I'm not trying to be shady. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm telling you, with the school to prison pipeline, with the education and the classism that's going on in this country, it was a plan to dumb down the Mexican public, the American public. It was a plan by people like President Dump that's in office now that lied about Project 2025, but he sure is implementing everything from Project 2025, ain't he? Now, I don't want to hear about no black people that voted for him. You sit there and you take it to the chin. Don't say nothing. Dumb. Just dumb. But, okay. What if they not the people, though? What if they not the people? Isn't that a crime? If America is sending taxpayer dollars by the billions over to a false people who they knew were not the people, would that not be a crime? This is big level. This is a high level. This ain't food stamp fraud. This is high level. Something that you take a president out over, like they did with JFK. I'm telling you. And I'm not looking to harm anybody or anything. I'm just trying to get you to think. Think. What if they are not the people? What if they are not the people? Get out of your hatred for black people. What if they not the people? You starting to see the signs every day that them is not the people. What if they're not? Then what? America has been sending taxpayer dollars over to who's going like people, man, it will be anarchy in the streets. You've been sending our taxpayer dollars, we should be able to sue the government for this. Because you knew that these were not the people. And you funded them to put them in the land so you would have a base over there. But they went rogue. Because that was their plan all along. To walk side by side with you, to use you as a strong arm, talking about America, to use America as a strong arm, to bully everybody else, get America to, give the weapons and everything else, and then turn around and to America. Because we up now. We don't need you. Now we the superpower. America wasn't counting on that. Because, see, it's just like President Dump that's in office right now. A lot of these guys, they think that because, they all have white skin that they all thick as thieves. But he finding that out with Putin. You're not. Because Putin got him by one ball, and those imposter you-ish people got him by the other. And I ain't talking about your everyday you-ish people. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the elites, the bankers, the elites. The 1%. Well, the ones who are above the 1%. The Rothschilds. People like that. They're you-ish too. It don't matter if they unorthodox or orthodox. Don't matter. They are the same. And it don't matter if they unorthodox or if they orthodox, because it's false. They don't follow Torah. They follow the Talmud and Kabbalah. Let me sum this up. All Americans will be pissed at the government if the secret was known. Some people really believe that they are helping God's chosen people. Can you think of how pissed they will be when they conclude that it was all lies to get gold, oil, money, and land? It was all one big scheme. One big scheme. And you know when it come out, you know how the American public gonna act. Oh my God, how did it happen? How? When? I just don't understand. Like, how did it happen? When the proof has been in your face the whole time. People have been telling you the whole time. Just like when they said, oh, she'll never sink. She'll never sink. The Titanic, oh, she'll never sink. It's unsinkable. It's unsinkable. God could never sink the Titanic. That's how you know they Esau, because they say dumb shit like that. And where's that bitch at? Glub, glub. Oh, are you crazy? This is America. This is America. Two planes are never going to a. This is America. Are you crazy? Two planes going where? That'll never happen. That'll never happen. Where are the two buildings? And it's no shade, and it's no shade. I am not shaming the victims. So please don't do that. My heart go out to the families. But it's time that you understand what type of government that you have, that we have. It's time to take the fucking blindfold. Excuse my language, because I'm going to continue on my lesson here. It's time to take the blindfold off. Open your eyes to see what kind of government you really have. They had a hand in it. Old Georgie boy. Partnering up with them Saudis. It was a plan. So they can get rich, just like this dump that's in office right now. Coincidentally, the last government shutdown happened under him. What y'all finding out is that your racism is going to cost you a lot. Racism is expensive. You voted for this guy, a convicted felon. Oh, he's such a good businessman. Yeah, now, after shaking people down, which it was prophesied that he was going to do that because he's Esau. And it was prophesied that Esau was going to live by the sword. And that's living by the sword. Shaking them down. And these people are cowards. Cowards. He gonna keep shaking you down because that's what bullies do. Until you gang up, until you whoop they. Just like all these countries are gonna do to this place. You're in for a rude awakening. I've been telling you that the downfall to the white man was coming. Read the book of Obadiah. Or you can go watch my video. Anyway, all Americans will be pissed at the government if the secret was known. Some people really believe that they are helping God's chosen people. Can you think of how pissed they would be when they conclude that it was all lies to get gold, oil, money, and land? Everything would unravel, like 9/11, the Federal Reserve, and etc. The Balfour Declaration was a 1917 British statement with America's backing of support for the creation of a false national home for the ill-ish people who did not exodus out of Egypt with Moses. In Palestine, conveyed in a letter from Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Lord Rothschild, research who that is. Issued during World War I, the declaration aimed to gain EU-ish support after the propagandistic Holocaust that would make the world feel sorry for them from America for the Allied powers America. This was the result of Zionist lobbying, but it also conflicted with prior British pledges to the Arabs for independence and is seen as a major factor in the Palestine conflict. America keeps the real Jews, the foundational black Americans, the Negroes, the natives, the dark ones, and the Latinos, the dark ones, out the way via oppression, gossip, sports, NBA, NFL, etc., and entertainment. She, America, used a false people so they, America and Britain, could create a false state in an almost desert-like area where they would normally have no business being in which the sun agrees with me and disagrees with their skin, where they would have military power to eventually gain the resources of surrounding lands, all to strengthen Esau. A Mexican government and false state of Israel, who are impostors. Isaac prophesied to his son Esau about how he and his descendants would live. This is Esau's descendants living by the sword throughout history. Oh yeah, I forgot to ask, how did they keep their elaborate scheme funded? Mexican taxpayer dollars, black Christian church tithes and offerings. I have already shown you videos on how the elite, the ill-ish bankers, Illuminati, etc., of the imposters use pawns like TD, Jake the Snake Mistake, Joyce Joker Face Michael Myers, Creative Flow of Dollars, Benny Hennessy, and others to get their members in the pews to donate, sow seeds into organizations such as On Wings of Eagles or Eagles Wings. These organizations use the money collected to bring imposter converts to the false state of Israel. I'm no lawyer, but I'm sure that some major laws have been broken. What if people came together and wanted to sue the government for sending tax money to imposters who they knew were imposters because they set them up and put them over there? What if the families of the 34 slain Americans wanted to sue the government? What if the United Nations wanted to condemn America for participating in a lie that resulted in a genocide of the Palestinian people? These are the same people or connected to them who are currently trying to strong-arm Jimmy Kimmel. I think we may just be seeing an end to late night TV. I hope Jimmy does not apologize because he didn't say anything wrong. I do apologize for having gone off into one of my rants, but I had to get that out. Also, rest in peace to Demartravion read. And my condolences to his family. Of course, we black folk know that there was foul play involved because we don't hang ourselves. Excuse me. The Jamaican Maroons. The Jamaican Maroons are descendants of Africans who fought and escaped from slavery and established free communities in the mountainous interior of Jamaica during the era of slavery. African slaves imported during the Spanish period may have provided the first runaways. Many slaves gained freedom when the English took control of Jamaica in 1665. The Windward Maroons and those from the Cockpit country stubbornly resisted conquest in the First and Second Maroon Wars in 1771. This is what I just read. See, this is what my book was about. This is what my book is about. You see that? This is what my book is about. They would fight like hell to keep this from being published. That's why I did my videos. And you know what's sad? You know what's sad? What's sad is that sometimes you hear people, well, why ain't nobody speaking out? People are speaking out. I know I've been speaking out for 10 plus years, but because I'm not Bishop T.D. Jake the Snake Mistake or Creator Flow of Dollars, who this man just publicly admitted that he lied to you. Lied. And I told you he was a con artist back then. But nope, you ain't want to believe me. So people were out here. But see, you so caught up in the two female rap artists beef, how they going in on each other, you know, and they both are guilty of calling black women monkeys. They both are guilty of talking about kids and everything else, you know. And so, but you want to be distracted with that. You want to be you want to be distracted. That's why these things are happening. Who are the Crew people? Africa's sailor tribe that refused to be captured into slavery. Let's see up close. The Crew people are indigenous to Liberia and the Ivory Coast. Crew were most known for seafaring and their strong resistance to capture by European enslavers in the transatlantic slave trade. The Crew would fight vehemently, and even take their own lives before surrendering to enslavement because of their tenacity. They were labeled as difficult and less valuable in the slave trade. Apart from their strength and resistance, the Crew were known for their ability to effortlessly navigate the seas. Their skills In both canoeing and surfing, the strong ocean currents brought upon much recognition, which later afforded them to work on British merchant on I'm sorry, afforded them work on British merchant and warships in the 1700s. See? There were your pirates. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, man, what I said earlier, these people, man, they knew what they did. They knew what they did. They knew that this was wrong. They knew it was wrong. This wasn't no, oh, we just gonna assume, that it's these people. No, they knew. They made a plot. They went in, they said, we are going to become riches, because you have to understand. I've been telling y'all, this goes all the way back to Genesis 25 and Genesis 27, okay? Genesis 25, King James Version. You need to read that. Genesis 27. You need to read that, okay? We have the birthright. How do you know? Because we are the pizzazz. We are the greatness. We are the salt. We are. That's what it means. Salt, flavor, soul. Soul. It's us, baby. It's us. Black women, you experience it all the time. How do you get your hair like that? Can I touch it? Can I touch your hair? Black men, they took our haircut. Tried to give it another person's name. What they try to Travis Khaleesi. You see, they walk around here looking ridiculous with dreads and braids. You see, and it's proof. It's even more proof that, man, they want to be us. They want our swag. They want our appeal. Black men, they want your BBC. Black women, they want your lips. They want your boobs. They want your butt. So bad that when they took over during the Renaissance, them little frail bodies, they had to put wires and hangers to make their dresses poof up in the back, because they had nothing to hold their dresses up. But you didn't have to use no wires or no hangers, because you had something behind you that held your dress up. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Are you going to find any white Sarah Bartmans? Are you going to find any white Henrietta Lacks? You going to find any of them? Huh? What's the guy that came up with the, he came up with the vaccinations? He was a slave. Came up with the vaccines. Stole it from him. Still kept him as a slave. Come on, man. Don't nobody praise like you. Nobody sings like you. Nobody can run as fast as you can. Nobody can jump as high as you can. Nobody cooks better than you. Loved your cooking so much that they even would, they hate us so much, but they would even allow us to cook for them and feed their kids and breast milk and breastfeed their children. You have to understand what ruling by the sword means. Ruling by the sword means is that they will be the ones to take our children and use them as gator bait. But they wanted us to breastfeed their children. It's a reason for that. Because they know whose milk is pure. These people know what they did. And see, they did this years ago. The forefathers, with the Freemasonry and the oaths and everything else that they took. That's all Esau. George Washington, Esau. All descendants of Esau. Christopher Columbus, descendants of Esau. America and Spain used the same bird, eagle, an opportunistic predator. And it's so funny that one of these female celebrities recently posted an eagle, right? And it's like, if you know anything about eagles, you know, like, okay, like hawks got the best, like, screech for a bird. They got the best, like, you know, they're calling for a bird. But the eagle, you would be surprised, as strong as it is, and, you know, as majestic as it is, and everything else, it has the most annoying call or the most annoying voice. And it's so crazy how people are starting to get tired of this person who just recently shared an eagle. Like, the irony is just so there. It's just so crazy. But anyway, you have to understand why these people have went through great lengths to basically go after anybody who tries to speak about them, you know, but they can say whatever they want to say about any and everybody. They can say whatever they want to say. And, you know, they own just about all of the media, you know. And the reason why, I believe, the reason why they let, you know, stuff like Fox and stuff like that exists, because so people can't say, well, you own all the media, you know. No, that's not true, because, you know, such and such owns Fox and they're not you-ish, you know. And so that kind of thing. But it's pretty ironic, right, how Fox and them have a lot of the same viewpoints, because they're the same people. And what better way to keep people from figuring this out? What better way? To keep up the race wars, keep up the race propaganda, to keep up, you know, to keep up the bull. So look, I came across this video recently, right? And I've been talking about this for the past 10 plus years. And, you know, now I'm starting to see what I'm talking about make its way across social media platforms. So I love being vindicated. I'm going to show you this video.
That the Wailing Wall is the sacred remnant, the second temple, a place where God's presence still lingers. But this narrative falls apart under historical and archaeological scrutiny. The structure commonly revered today is, in truth, a surviving wall of the Roman military compound known as Fort Antonia, not the Holy Temple. The actual temple stood to the south, built over the Gihon Spring, a requirement for temple purification rituals, which the Roman compound did not meet. The protruding rock beneath the dome of the rock, often mistaken for the foundation stone of the temple, was in fact the central part of Fort Antonia. In other words, the Jews today are not praying at the remains of God's temple. They are praying at the wall of a Roman fortress. But the deception goes deeper.
It does, because guess what? They are Roman. They are Esau. They are Roman.
The rituals performed at the Wailing Wall are rooted not in biblical faith, but in the 13th century occult system of the Kabbalah.
See? I've talked about this. I've talked about this Kabbalah stuff. You can go to my page, my Fitzgerald. If you've seen the pages, you can go. Man, I've been talking about this stuff for years. And people would, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And all because it was me. All because it was me. Because they didn't want me to be right. That is how simple-minded some of our people are. And now it's crickets. Ain't got nothing to say. Like cowards. But I've talked about this Kabbalah, man. And that bowing back and forth, I've talked about that too. That rocking back and forth, that's a sexual thing, man. Ugh.
Operated in the Zohar, and further mystified by the Hasidic movement. The supposed divine presence they seek at the wall is not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is the Shekhinah, a feminine emanation in Jewish mysticism. She is described in erotic, intimate terms, often as a divine consort, with whom spiritual union is sought through the act of prayer, a practice called kavana.
Now, this is a sexual practice that this man is doing. Okay? He's thrusting his hips. See, you think he just bowing his head. No, doofus. He's thrusting his hips like he's hitting somebody, like he's hitting a woman from the back. He's thrusting his hips. That's the sexual energy.
Where physical movement, like the back and forth thrusting you see, mirrors an esoteric sexual ritual intended to unite the Shekhinah with the Ein Sof, the infinite masculine force of their God concept. This is not worship. It's a metaphysical sex act disguised as devotion. It is an inversion of divine truth, rooted in mysticism that scripture calls an abomination. And this is where it collides with our politics. Nearly every major political figure, presidents, prime ministers, global influencers, must perform their rite of passage at the Wailing Wall, hands pressed against stone, heads bowed in reverence. They are not just pondering to voters or honoring tradition. They are knowingly or unknowingly participating in an occult ritual, submitting themselves at the very seat of the synagogue of Satan.
Bad business.
Scripture is unambiguous. In Acts 17:24, it says, God does not dwell in temples made with hands. Much less would he dwell in a Roman fortress surrounded by rituals that glorify a false god and mystical union.
Exactly.
It is spiritual prostitution. Our leaders are not just shaking hands with global powers. They are shaking hands with the devil. Shaking hands with the devil. Believe.
Y'all notice how the picture of him ends when she said the devil?
In their articles on Khazars, the Jewish encyclopedias tell us that north of Babylon, Khazaria was a vast grassland on what is now the plains of southern Russia. About 740 AD, the king of the Khazars converted to Judaism and made it the state religion. Incredibly, within a few centuries, the people of Khazaria convinced themselves that they were not Gentiles after all, but the physical descendants of Abraham. During the Middle Ages, the fierce Mongols from the east and Russians from the north drove the Khazars west out of their ancient homeland. Most settled in Eastern Europe, especially Poland. The Khazars were fascinated with that mystical aspect of Judaism called Kabbalah. Kabbalah was the Jewish form of ancient Gnosticism.
What excited the Khazars
I've
was the
shared all
Kabbalah
these
preached
pictures.
revolution. It
All
said
these
that Jews,
pictures
as
I've
superior
shared.
beings, were destined to rule the world.
Israel, according to the Kabbalah, was the visible, rational emanation of God in this world.
That man, last name is made up.
Below Israel was confusion and darkness. In a typical passage, the Zohar teaches, living soul refers to Israel, who have holy, living souls from above, and cattle and creeping thing and beasts of the earth to the other peoples who are not living soul.
That's what they believe about everybody who is not them. Because they are not the Jews, but everybody who is not them, they believe they are Goyim. And like I've said, they've had many conversions. They have had conversions in 720 BC. They've had them in the AD as well. But see, they were more in the land before 740 AD because when Christ came on the scene, Christ was on the scene around 28 AD and 30. That's when he was grown. And so around that time, 28 to 30, he was grown in his ministry, 30 AD. So they was in the land long before the date that this person gave. But hey, I've given you all of this information. I've given it to you. I told you he was the devil. I told you. see who that is. His father. They look just like him, don't they? I told you. Him and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I told you. One and the same. This devil right here. Read it and weep. His family name was later Hebraized to that name. Told you. The Polish surname Milikowski is related to villages in Poland and other places in Russia and Belarus. Told you. You see that date? Yep, you see that? You see that? I want you to keep this in mind because you're going to see this picture. I'm going to show you this picture because I have a lesson on Paul, and that's going to be next in the next video. But I want you to look at this. You see that? September 9th, 2017. Okay? I came into this around 2014. Okay? 2015, I started writing my book. 2016, well, end of 2015, beginning of 2016, I moved to where I'm at now. Look, this is 9 years ago. 9 years ago. 9 years ago. This is my lesson on tithing. Tithing. Then it became videos. Look, see, then it became videos. Part 1, Part 2. Let me restart over on the Jamaican Maroons so I can come to a close on this part of the video because, you know, I always do two or three parts. Judah had the longest, but Levi did 2 videos, so Benjamin I'll do 2 videos on as well. The Jamaican Maroons. The Jamaican Maroons are descendants of Africans who fought and escaped from slavery and established free communities in the mountainous interior of Jamaica during the era of slavery. African slaves imported during the Spanish period may have provided the first runaways. Many slaves gained freedom when the English took control of Jamaica in 1655. The Windward Maroons and those from the cockpit country stubbornly resisted conquest in the First and Second Maroon Wars in 1771. At the same time, Mexico was seeking to gain independence from England by going to war. England was also at war with the Jamaican Maroons. And we see the Maroons are still present in Jamaica to this day to show you who won the war. Not only was the Maroons known as priests among the Jamaicans, but they were also the skilled warriors, renamed pirates. When the British captured Jamaica in 1655, the Spanish colonists fled. Free blacks and mulattoes, former slaves, and possibly some native Arawaks to coalesce into several. I had to re-edit this. When the British captured Jamaica in 1655, before the Spanish colonists fled, they freed their slaves. Free blacks, mulattoes, former slaves, and native Arawaks coalesced into several heterogeneous groups in the Jamaican interior. They created palenques or stockade mountain farms at Luides Vale in modern-day Clarendon Parish under Juan de Bolas or Lubolo towards the western end of Cockpit Country, where they Varmele Negroes under the leadership of Juan de Serras. A third group was active in the region of Porus in modern Manchester Parish, and there was possibly a fourth in the Blue Mountains. During the first decade of British rule, these groups were active on behalf of the Spanish, but as it became increasingly obvious that the British would hold their conquest, their positions shifted. Faced with discovery and defeat in 1659, Juan de Bolas allied himself with the British and guided their troops on a raid which resulted in the final expulsion of the Spanish in 1660. In exchange, in 1663, Governor Littleton signed the first Maroon Treaty, granting de Bolas and his people land on the same terms as British settlers. The other Maroon groups remained independent in the mountainous interior of Jamaica, surviving by subsistence farming and periodic raids of plantations. These initial Maroon groups dwindled, migrating or merging with settlers. Others may have coalesced to form the nucleus of what would later become the Windward Maroons. Over time, runaway slaves increased the Maroon population, which eventually came to control large areas of the Jamaican interior. Establishment of the Leeward and Windward Maroons. Between 1673 and 1690, there were several major slave uprisings, mainly involving highly newly arrived, highly militarized Coromantee groups. Between 1673 and 1690, there were several major slave uprisings, mainly involving highly newly arrived, highly militarized Coromantee groups. On July 31st, 1690, a rebellion involving 500 slaves from the Sutton estate in Clarendon Parish led to the formation of Jamaica's most stable and best organized Maroon group. Although some were deleted, recaptured, or surrendered, more than 200 remained free after the rebellion was considered over, including women and children. They established an Ashanti-style polity based in the Eastern Cockpit country. This group centered around Trelawney Town under rulers of whom the most famous was Cujo, and only incorporated outsiders following a strict probationary period. It should be noted that Cujo is an Akan day name, assigned to about a seventh of males in Akan speaking culture, including several Jamaican Maroon leaders. The Windward Maroons in the wilder parts of eastern Jamaica were always composed of separate, highly mobile, and culturally heterogeneous groups. From early on, their presence was perceived as an impediment to British settlement by the Jamaican governors, who rated them to little effect in 1686 and 1702. Okay, the Windward Maroons in the wilder parts of eastern Jamaica were always composed of separate, highly mobile, and culturally heterogeneous groups. From early on, their presence was perceived as an impediment to British settlement by the Jamaican governors, who rated them too little effect in 1686 and 1702. By about 1720, a stronger windward focal point had developed around the culturally Africanized group of three villages known as Nanny Town under the spiritual leadership of Nanny herself, sometimes in allegiance and sometimes in competition with other windward groups. Queen Nanny, also known as Granny Nanny, died 1700s, is the only female listed among Jamaica's national heroes. She has been immortalized in songs and legends. She was known for her exceptional leadership skills, especially in guerrilla warfare. During the First Maroon War, her remains are reputedly buried at Bump Grave and Moortown, the main town of the Windward Maroons, who are concentrated in and around the Rio Grande Valley in the northeastern parish of Portland. Her remains are reputedly buried at Bumpgrave in Moortown, the main town of the Windward Maroons, who are concentrated in and around the Rio Grande Valley in the northeastern parish of Portland. Okay, and the source for this is, let me see, the Jamaican Maroons, and you can read, well, I mean, I know at one point in time, Wikipedia, this is from years ago when people wasn't trying to put false information and stuff on Wikipedia and stuff like that. So, and I haven't read this in quite some time. This is, something I so I'm just going over this. But, moving on, Jamaican Maroons in Sierra Leone. Source Wikipedia section, history. Alright, so Jamaican Maroons in Sierra Leone, source Wikipedia section, history. And it's so crazy because I've already talked about Sierra Leone previously in a few of my videos. I've talked about Freetown. I've talked about everything that I'm telling you here. So yeah, I'm using Wikipedia because Wikipedia at the time that I got this information, it was reputable, and I still do think that it is trustworthy. Some things, but you have to research and fact check what you find on Wikipedia, and so I did do that. That's how this made it into this book. So yes, the source is Wikipedia. Following there, and I'm almost done because it's almost a 2-hour mark, and my brother is tired because, like I said, I did work today. So excuse the reading, but I did work today. So yeah. Following their rebellion and surrender to the colonial government in the Second Maroon War of 1796, about 600 Jamaican Maroons from Trelawney Town were deported to Nova Scotia. Tired of the cost of maintaining order, the Jamaican government had decided to rid themselves of the problem. Immediate actions were put in place for the removal of one group of Maroons, Trelawney, to Lower Canada. Quebec, Upper Canada, Ontario had also been suggested as a suitable place. The British decided to send this group to Halifax, Nova Scotia, until any further instruction were received from England. Two gentlemen, Messrs. Quarrel and Ochterlony, were sent from Jamaica with the Maroons as commissioners. On June 26, 1796, the ships Dover, Mary, and Anne sailed from Port Royal Harbor, Jamaica, to Halifax. One arrived in Halifax on July 21st. The other two followed 2 days later, killing a total of 568 men, women, and children. The Duke of Kent and Commander-in-Chief of the British Army in North America, impressed with the proud bearing and other characteristics of the Maroons, employed the group to work on the new fortifications at the Citadel Hill in Halifax. The Lieutenant Governor, Sir John Wentworth, believed that the Maroons would be good settlers. He received orders from the Duke of Portland to settle them in Nova Scotia. After the first winter, the Maroons raised in an independent culture and warmer climate, and not impressed with what they considered the servile aspects of subsistence agriculture, became less tolerant of the conditions in which they were living. The Sierra Leone Company, the British, decided to send the Maroons to its new colony of Freetown in present-day Sierra Leone, West Africa, which had been established for the Nova Scotian settlers. The Maroon survivors from Nova Scotia were transported to Freetown in 1800 in the early years of the colony. History of Liberia, Wikipedia. Liberia is a country in West Africa which was founded, established, colonized, and controlled by citizens of the United States and ex-Caribbean slaves as a colony for former African American slaves and their free black descendants. It is one of only 2 sovereign countries in the world that were started by citizens and ex-Caribbean slaves of a political power as a colony for former slaves of the same political power, the other being Sierra Leone, established by Great Britain. In 1847, Liberia proclaimed its independence from the American Colonization Society, ACS. They wanted to rid themselves of their problem, which was people who refused to be slaves. So when you look at majority of the blacks in Canada, they are predominantly Benjamin. And we know wherever Benjamin is, Judah and Levi are not too far behind. So where the Caribbean people are, Jamaica and the Caribbean people, so is Judah, the Negroes, and the Haitians, and the Trinidadians. We're not too far from each other always. All 3 tribes make up the southern kingdom of Israel. Halifax is in Canada. I believe there is a city named Halifax in England as well. Keep in mind, a lot of Benjamin was also moved into England. To dilute the warrior spirit of Benjamin, the oppressors decided to split them between Canada and England. Benjamin predominantly came from Western Africa. They were the warriors of places such as Sierra Leone and different parts of Ghana. When the British could not control Benjamin, the Jamaicans, the Caribbeans, they decided to send Benjamin back to Western Africa. This is where Freetown in Liberia, Africa derives, which Freetown is an area where the people live like nomads and the resources are beyond minimal, which is why the land for purchase there is so cheap. Liberia is not too far behind. The land faces many famines and devastations, but have managed to uphold due to the resource of rubber, which is dominated by companies that have factories over in the area, such as Firestone. And we already know about what King Leopold did to our people in the Congo in order to produce rubber. Let me show these. You know what I say? You don't like to hear me stuttering and rambling on? You can read it for yourself. You can read it for yourself. keep telling y'all, just like a puzzle. I show these pictures all the time. Psalms 137, 3 and 4. See? That's Judah with the old Negro spirituals. Let my people go over the river Jordan. Swing low, swing chariot, coming forth to carry me home. That's the Negroes, right? It's that music, that gospel music, which I love, which translates over into choirs like the Mississippi Mass Choir, you know, stuff like that. And then on the Benjamin side, you have the reggae music, that sweet music of like Bob Marley and... Okay, so I'm not going to... Hey, you see me? I'm not going to play the music. I'm just going to show you the video because I want to show you something. This is Bob Marley. Bob Marley and the Wailers Redemption song. Look at this. What is that? The Lion of Judah. The Lion of Judah. You can go look this up. What is that? Cross? Lion of Judah. Watch the words. Look at this. Old pirates, yes, they rob. I. Sold I to the merchant ships. Come on, man. Isn't that what I was just talking about? Isn't that what I've just been talking about? So, you can go, this is the name of the song. You can go look it up and listen to it. This is my private, this is a private gospel music playlist. Private means only me, I can access this. Look at the views. 8,785 views. Those are all my views. How many times I listen to this playlist. I bet you your gospel playlist ain't better than mine. I've got a testimony. We've come this far by faith. Rest in peace, Lucretia Campbell. Don't nobody sing gospel music better than us. Albertina Walker and the Caravans, Lord keep me day by day. Shirley Caesar. Caravans. Christina Bell. Tamala Mann, of course. Kim Burrell. Avery Sunshine, Fantasia, of course. Leandria, my girl. And Rance Allen. Rance Allen, rest in peace to Rance Allen. I love that man. I grew up cattle corner to this man's church. This man's church is in my hometown of Toledo, Ohio. Okay, when I was a kid, I could walk out of my house, sit on my porch, and look directly forward to the right, just slightly, and his green church would sit right there. Okay, his church faced Vance Street, but the side of his church faced Ewing Street. I lived on Ewing Street, okay, on the 600 block. Okay, the next block to the right of us was, the next block to the right of us, on the right side was a house, but on the left side was his church. That's how close I was. I love this man. May he rest in peace. Of course, The Voice, Vanessa Bell. Of course, the Clark sisters. Of course. Of course. Twinkie, my favorite. My favorite. And then Dorinda and Karen. This is my gospel playlist. Dorinda. And Karen. Then LaShawn Pace, the Pace sisters. Now we starting to get into the choirs. Ain't nobody messing with my gospel playlist. Nobody. Mississippi Mass Choir. Two of my favorite songs. Emmanuel. I might listen to that after this. And He Can Fix What Is Broke. My home choir, Los Salem Missionary Baptist Church, used to sing this back when I was a part of that church. We offer prayers. Normally I sing lighter, but I can sing both. Which is, I don't know why some people, they try to clown, like, yes, it's guys that have high pitched voices. Now it's a band, and I know I'm showing y'all my gospel playlist right now, but it's a band out here, right? That the band, There'll Never Be, that song, Another Love. That guy has a higher voice too, but they don't clown him when he's singing. He has a high pitched voice too. So he can hit notes. I'm sure he can hit some of those same girls can hit. I never proclaimed to be a singer though, but I was in the choir, so I do know how to sing. But I'm not, I'm not no professional or not even proclaiming to be. It's common to think of gospel music when you think of Negro spirituals, but Benjamin had his own way of singing about the Most High and Zion, Israel. Benjamin was singing about Zion long before Bob Marley. It just so happens that Bob Marley made this form of music, now called reggae music, popular. Notice in both gospel and reggae, it speaks of the Lion of Judah, which I just showed you that. Who is that? And what does that mean? Hail, hail, the Lion of Judah. What does that mean? Hopefully, after reading this book, people will have an answer to that question. When the Queen Isabella noticed that the music of Benjamin was a way of communication that was awakening the people, she sent in a Freemason named Haile Selassie who inspired Bob Marley. Bob Marley was, and Haile Selassie is, I be seeing some guys on Facebook be giving praise to Haile Selassie. I got something for you, and it's probably gonna come in the next video, because that's when I'm gonna talk about that fool, Haile Selassie. A fool. If you following him, you a fool. She sent in a Freemason named, he was a Freemason, named Haile Selassie, who inspired Bob Marley. Bob Marley was popularized because of his promotion of substance abuse, which is weed, marijuana. The British wanted to get the tribe of Benjamin high on drugs so they would be easier to conquer, like the British did with our native brothers Gad, Reuben, and Issachar. But that's stupid. Because marijuana don't have the same effects on some people. I know whole people, when I worked at Promessica Toledo Hospital, it was a whole nurse, by the name of Travis. I think that was his name, Trevor or Travis, one of the two. I don't. But he was a clean cut, backstreet looking boy, dark brunette hair, and uppity white, till we found out he was stealing the meds from the patients, and that's not allegedly. That's why he was let go. He used to work for Promessica Toledo Hospital on a cardiac intermediate step-down unit. He was a white boy, former Army vet, but he got caught he would take the meds out of wherever you get them from, and then go act like he was giving them to a patient, but then he'd take them. And he worked the night shift. So you already know how that go. Especially around 2, 3 in the morning. Ain't no cameras in them rooms, so you knocked it over. I don't know where it's at, Maybe somebody came in and must have took it. I sat it right here. So yeah, he got busted, so but like I said, if you would have saw him, or if you would have worked around him, you would have never known. I ain't gonna even front. I didn't know, because I never really got into him like that. But white, so but everybody on the floor was shocked, so. It's people that's whole functioning cokeheads, okay? And you've heard about this. Doctors that function on cocaine, surgeons. So it's out there, So they dumb for thinking that, because it does not have the same effects on everybody. Everybody don't be. They don't do that to everybody. Bob Marley became so popular that he had more political power than the leaders and government, just like the Honorable Malcolm X, the Honorable Medgar Evers, and so many others. Bob Marley was taken down. The elite knew when Bob found out their plan, he would use his influence against the government leaders of Jamaica, so they deleted him. This all happened while Judah Negroes was going through the civil rights movement. With all this spiritual awakening going on, the English and Satanic Freemasons were very scared of being overthrown, just like they are today. After Bob Marley was deleted, the elite put a financial backing into a new religion that would sway the awakening of the true Jews of Israel. This new religion would lead people right back into Satanism. In the pictures below, notice the Freemasonry hand signals with the interlocking fingers and the thumbs on both hands touching with the pointer fingers pointing down, making a pyramid. Some foolishly believe this is a symbol for Jay-Z. My people perish because of lack of knowledge. Yeah, because I showed this, right? Yeah, I showed that. Okay. I'm going to talk about this bum. I'm going to talk about this bum on the next video. This ain't nothing but another false prophet. A Freemason. A Freemason. Okay? Freemasonry. And I've already given you the videos on Freemasons. He was one of them. And look at the robe. Rastas and Rastafarianism and all of that stuff. It's all false. You think it's a joke? Look, this is bum. I told you I'm going to talk about him on the next video. See? See, look. This man is no son of Solomon. That is a lie. Look at them. Look at them fingers. Look at him. He was a Freemason. Look at this BS right here. That's what he came up with. I want you to see this. Fair use. Fair use. Fair use. I just want you to see this.
Whenever people throw out that tired line, black people are 13% of the population but commit 50% of the deletions, they're not telling the truth. They're repeating a hashtag they probably heard from some podcast or talking head. But here's the problem. The FBI's 2019 report they love to quote isn't about convictions. It's about arrest. And an arrest does not mean guilt. But in conservative talking points, those arrests are treated as if every single one equals a conviction. That's dishonest. It's also weaponized and is used to smear black men and paint an entire community as dangerous. So let's flip it. Let's use the same 2019 FBI arrest data, but let's apply it to white men. Let's see how the numbers sound when the shoe is on the other foot. In 2019, here's what the FBI's own arrest table showed. 69.8% of grape arrests were white. Almost 7 out of every 10 people arrested for grape were white. 65.8% of arrests for offenses against family and children were white. That means the majority of arrests in categories that involve harming your own family, neglecting your children, or endangering your household came from white people. 61.8% of aggravated assault arrests were white. The majority of violent attacks that get classified as aggravated assault weren't committed by black people. They were white. 59.1% of all violent crime arrests overall were white. And even prostitution and commercial vice, 50.9% of arrests were white. Now, if I use your same logic, the logic people apply to black men when they scream 50% of deletions, I could say, should women and children in America be afraid of white men?
Yes.
We warn our daughters that the biggest threat is white men?
Yes.
They dominate arrests in categories like rape, SA, and family offenses?
Yes.
That sounds extreme, doesn't it? It sounds offensive. It sounds like I'm trying to smear every white man in the country.
Not
and
really.
that's because I would be. But that's exactly what people do when they take these FBI arrest stats, strip away the context, and weaponize them against black men. Because here's the truth. An arrest is not a conviction. Almost half of all deletions go unsolved every single year. And those arrests, they don't account for policing bias or where law enforcement chooses to focus resources. In most violence, it's intra-racial. That means white people overwhelmingly harm white victims, and black people overwhelmingly harm black victims. So when you pretend that arrests are the same thing as guilty verdicts, You're not just twisting the numbers, you're creating stereotypes. And those stereotypes have consequences, especially for black men. Let's flip that perspective to white men. Even if we took those same FBI arrest percentages where white men dominate categories like rape, SA, and family offenses, the share of the white male population arrested is still just a fraction of a fraction, meaning over 99%.
The soundbite, and then you can talk about the things that you're talking about. No, she says blacks commit over 60% of the violent crime.
Yeah, that's not right. That's not right.
Blacks commit over 60% of the violent crime in America, despite the fact that they're only 13%.
Oh my God, it's an alien! Somebody help me!
Ain't this the same bitch that was on that Species movie? I knew I saw that bitch somewhere. She was on that Species movie.
Of the population, and by the way, it's not really black women who are doing it. It's mostly black men who are cut that in half. 6.5% of the population commit over 60% of the violent crime in America. That's what's true. There are all sorts of reasons for it that the left won't be honest about. But yeah, fatherless homes is a big piece of it,
Lies.
and gang violence is a big piece of it.
Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. First of all, there are two sets of crime data in this country that we normally rely on. One is the FBI's uniform crime reports. The other is the Department of Justice National Crime Victimization Survey data. The latter is the bigger data set because it includes crimes that were never reported to the police, but which victims recount when they do this survey every year. And if you look at that, which is the biggest overall number of violent crimes committed in this country, black folks do not commit 60%. They commit about 26 to 28% in a given year. And I've looked at 25 years of that data. It is always the same, between 26 and 28%. Now, is that disproportionate to the 12 to 13% of the black population? Yes, for reasons I already said. There's a disproportionate rate of offending because of the socioeconomic factors that are correlated with criminal offending, not just for black folks, but all around the world in every country that studies it. But it's not 60%. It's 28, which means the other 72% is being done not by black people. So why are white folks so scared of black people? Because that's not who the most common offenders are. Is there a disproportion in homicide? Yes.
Fair
and in fact, the data
fair
does
use.
show that black folks, mostly black men, commit about half of all the homicides in America. And that seems like a really scary number, and I understand it is disproportionate. Again, that is because of the same socioeconomic factors. It's been studied by actual criminologists, none of whom are named Glenn Greenwald, none of whom are named Megyn Kelly, none of whom are named Benny Johnson, and they sure as shit were not named Charlie Kirk. They understand the reasons for that disproportion. But let me remind you, homicide is a very small, thankfully, subset of crime. So in an average year, there's about 8,000 black folks who will commit a homicide, mostly black men. And in a given year, there's about 17.5 million black men over the age of 12, which is the cutoff for being considered in crime data in this country. Do the math. 8,000 murderers out of 17.5 million eligible people is not exactly a statistically significant group. It's
Exactly.
4.61% of black men will commit a homicide in a given year. If you are afraid of that, you might as well be afraid of being struck by lightning like 4 times in a row. And you not 60%. It's 28, which means the other 72% is being done not by black people. So why are white folks so scared of black people? Because that's not who the most common offenders are. Is there a disproportion in homicide? Yes. And in fact, the data does show that black folks, mostly black men, commit about half of all the homicides in America. And that seems like a really scary number. And I'm afraid of being struck by lightning like 4 times in a row. And you definitely should go play the lottery, because the odds of that are probably considerably better than being murdered by some random black person. And that's not 8,000 murders of white people, by the way. That's 8,000 murders by black folks in a given year, the overwhelming majority of which are going to be against other black folks. So white fear of black folks, based on the data that she's offering, doesn't make any sense. But let's remember, this is the same woman who on Fox spent 3.5 hours over 3 weeks back in 2009 hyping the new Black Panther Party intimidating white voters in the Philadelphia precinct. And then when that was investigated by the Civil Rights Commission, Abigail Thernstrom, who was a conservative scholar and the vice chair of that commission, said it was much ado about nothing. And it was based on innuendo and unsubstantiated arguments. So this is the kind of person we're dealing with, someone who, number one, simply lies about the 60% number. It's just not accurate. Number two, hypes the black homicide, even though it's a very small number every single year, percentage-wise, and generally is and clearly cannot handle the political violence argument that you were trying to make and that she thought she was so cleverly rebutting.
And let's not forget, this is the same alien. It's the same alien who also said that Santa Claus is white because he just is white. And she said the same thing about Christ too. She said Christ was white. Dumb bimbo. Then she had to walk that back. You know, I think that she should just stick to movies. Well, y'all, that is it for this video. I am getting ready to call it an evening because it is 12:27 and I have to get up to go to work in the morning. So I hope you enjoyed this first video. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the love. And only a few more videos to go and I will be done. Thank God. For now, I'll be done for now. But have a good night. Savage out.